Good morning. I'm not sure if I'm going to be posting this or not, but I'm going to try to share what it's been like in the last month. I really don't like crying, especially alone or just anytime. Grief, a word I'm familiar with, but have gotten through in the past. But now it's an everyday sense that comes on so heavy sometimes that I can't breathe. So my husband and I were married for almost 29 years. I miss him. I miss him. Today is 30 days since New Year's Eve, and that was our last night together. We had just driven from Las Vegas because he was in the hospital there. He went into the hospital because he had not been able to urinate and he was getting blood. And so I said, well, it's probably UTI. So call the medical hotline or whatever they call that, telehealth. And they said to go ahead and take him into the ER. And so we did. And not knowing Las Vegas very well, I ended up, they said hospital, so I ended up taking him to this one place, and it was a nursing home, and so we were trying to find a real hospital. Finally found Sunrise Hospital, and we had to wait and wait and wait and wait, and finally they got somebody to do kind of a triage on him and said that they probably would catheterize him. But it still took hours, and he was in such pain because he couldn't urinate. So we finally got him in, and it was just so awful because he was bleeding so much. And they said most likely they just needed to clear out his bladder with fluids, and they would recommend him staying for 3 days or maybe a couple days. He ended up staying for 3 days. And it was days of bag after bag after bag of fluid going through his bladder, not into his body, which I was grateful for because he had congestive heart failure. And we went down to Las Vegas because he gave me a present for Christmas to see the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere, and he was going to go with me. And told me to go on my own. And a few hours I was away from him, he was in such pain, and they gave him Oxycontin or Codone or whatever they call it, and morphine, which the man hardly would take a Tylenol without me talking him into it. He was not a drinker or a drug taker. He was in a lot of pain because the blood clots were pressing up against the catheter and they weren't going through, so they would have to excise those. and flush it out. I felt so bad for him. But the day that we did get to take him home before, so the hospitalist said, it looks like things are getting more clear. It did look somewhat clear. And it was still red. But Kurt said to me, I just really don't know what's going to become of me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just don't know if I'm going to make it. And that just broke my heart. I just sat in his hospital room and I cried and cried and wept. And they came back in and asked him what his pain level was, and it was like at an 8. And so they ended up giving him more oxy. I don't know if they gave him more morphine at that time, but he started feeling better and he was more positive. And I'm like, you scared me, you scared me like you didn't know if you were going to die. And he said, I'm feeling better now, it's going to be okay. And he always was so positive. I mean, he had his moments. It was really hard in the last couple of months, but he was mostly an upbeat kind of guy, And so I talked to the nurse and I said, the doctor this morning said he could go home, and we got to get him home because he's got all of his doctors down in Reno and Sparks, and he really does need to get home. And he said, yeah, the hospital has said that, but we're waiting for the urologist. And I'm like, okay, well, it's almost 5 o'clock. Are they going to come? So he reached out to the nurse that we had. Was amazing. It was, I think his name was Josh. I can't remember now. I'm so bad with names. But he was just amazing. And he called the urologist, and then he called the hospitalist. And short story, long story short, they got him released, and within 2 hours, we were on our way home. But before we were on our way home, he'd been laying in bed for 3 days. And they got him up and they walked him around. I've got video of him walking around the ward, and it looked like he was doing good, I thought he was doing good. And they did get a lot of fluid off of his lungs because they gave him Lasix in the hospital, which is quite powerful. It's more powerful than a pill. So got everything together, got all the systems I needed for doing the work that they did to excise the catheter and make sure the blood clots didn't go against the catheter and get him all painful or full of pain again. And so I got him home, and I could tell he was confused. He was like, when I say confused, it was like the oxycodone was giving him hallucinations. He didn't want to eat. He took a few bites of a hamburger that my daughter had sent, and he got nauseous, and I think it was the oxy makes you nauseous. So I took it home with me so that he could have it at the timeshare, and we got him home, and I had rented a scooter, and so I went up to the timeshare and got the scooter and drove it down to the car and got him in it, and he was just not himself, he was confused and had a hard time even driving the scooter. And what the strangest thing was is when I put his pants on at the hospital, they didn't fit. And like he gained a whole bunch of weight in his belly. I mean, he was a very slim man, and I didn't know if the fluid was from his bladder being full, or anyways, it was not normal. I got him to the timeshare, and he was so tired. But he did sit and eat, part of the rest of the hamburger that my daughter had sent. Thank you, Paula. It was really good. I was hungry too. And got him a chocolate malt. Anyways, got him ready for bed, and his legs were really weak. All of a sudden, he was really weak. And he had to use the walker. They gave us a walker at the hospital, just gratis. And I'm like, it's like God was just taking care of us the whole time to get us home. And we were in a small bedroom in the timeshare. The place was huge, but the bedroom was like really tiny, and got into bed and got him ready for bed. And 3 o'clock in the morning, he fell out of bed. And I was like, what? I was so out of it. So I couldn't, between the mirror closet doors and the bed, he couldn't get up by himself. And so I had to help him up, but he's so long-legged that he was really having a hard time between those two spots. So we finally got him back into bed, and actually he wanted to go to the bathroom, so I took him to the restroom, made sure he could not trip and anything off the catheter, because he had the catheter in. And got him back into bed and slept a little bit longer, but we needed to get up to get moving to go to Reno. I'm not a big driver. I don't drive a lot. Because Kurt's always been, he loved to drive, and he loved to take care of me. And as he got older, he wasn't doing so well with driving, so I would drive more, but he always wanted to be the man, take care of me. Miss you, honey. Anyways, we had to return the scooter, and they were going to pick it up, so they picked it up just at the right time, where I was able to get him in the car with the scooter. Got all the car packed. It's like I had superhuman energy. I don't know where it all came from, but it must have been God was just giving me what I needed. And I also am not very good at driving long distances, but I didn't have any trouble, except I needed a little downtime when we hit Tonopah, and I took a little nap. But he slept most of the time. He chatted with me some. And we got to Beatty, and that's where the big candy factory is. And I went into the bathroom with him, but he hardly could walk. He had the hardest time walking, even with the walker. Like his body was shutting down or something. I don't know. It was crazy. And then his pants the night before, I just recall this, they were ripping at the pockets. And he's never, ever had any problem with weight gain. So he gained a lot of weight in a few minutes, really, from the hospital to our timeshare. And I didn't understand. I still don't understand, really. Congestive heart failures, where your heart can't pump out all the fluid that we have in our body, I guess. Oh, that's what it is. So during that time, he got to talk to his daughter on the phone, and that was really sweet and precious, and he was just fine. It seemed like he was just fine. He was even laughing because he said Paula had sent a hot meal from Reno and couldn't believe it was hot. And he'd never have had delivery like that from another city, that somebody gave him food. And it was just really cute how he couldn't figure out how it was hot from Reno. And I said, well, it was a local company. I was like, oh, I understand that now. But he got to talk to his daughter. And then we also had a doctor appointment with his heart doctor on the phone. And she had made an appointment so that he could get the Watchman with her husband. Her husband does the electrical side of the heart. And he was Dr. Shalapali. He's a great doctor. And I recommend her. She was my mom's doctor, and she was also she's my brother's doctor. And Kurt's been seeing her for years after he got his pacemaker. So we drove on to Tonopah, took a nap, and then drove on home. And he wasn't in any pain until about Fernley. And Fernley, he was really struggling. And I said, do you want me to stop and I can excise the blood clots out of the catheter? And he says, no, let's make it home. So we made it home. And our dog sitter was there, and she's so sweet taking care of our dogs. And I said, I really have to take care of Kurt because he's having some trouble. I'll, talk to you tomorrow. And so I got him in the shower because in order to excise the blood clots, it can get pretty messy. And he didn't like that. He didn't want to be in the shower because it was cold. And so I tried to warm the water up and washed his back and got the blood clot excised so that it was flowing again. His urine was flowing again, and I felt so bad for him because he was still having a lot of withdrawals from the oxy. And the oxy, he was like having hallucinations, like he was eating something that wasn't there. And he said, that wasn't right. And I said, yeah, no, that wasn't right, but that's okay. You're just getting off this medicine. It's going to be okay. And then got him, he was frustrated with me because I wanted to wash his hair in the shower, and got his back dried off and lotioned his back. He never needed me to do any of that. He was always pretty much self-care. He didn't need a nursing home. He didn't need anything. He was very slow. Took him an hour and a half to get ready in the morning, but he was always putting on his own clothes and his hearing aid and brushing his teeth. He was a very clean, organized man, my engineer. And he was always happy when he woke up every morning. So anyways, I could tell he was frustrated with me, and I said, I'm so sorry, honey. I know you're frustrated. So I just didn't want my hair washed. And I said, well, I'm not a very good nurse, but I'm a pretty good wife. And he laughed, and he said, yes, you are. And we got to I just snuggled him in a robe and got him all wrapped up and got everything hooked up to the walker so he could walk into the living room. And he was watching TV, some engineering thing. That's what he liked to watch. And I said, you go ahead and watch what you want to watch. I'm going to go ahead and unpack. And I unpacked everything. Now, that's very unusual for me. I don't know why I did that. I just wanted it all unpacked so we could sit and enjoy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And so we got done about an hour later, and everything's put away. And we watched Dubai, New Year's Eve in New York, and about 11:30, I think, he we both were ready to go to bed. We just aren't big late night, past midnight people anyways. So we end up going to bed, and I snuggled him in bed, and we just went to sleep, and kissed each other goodnight. I believe. I hope I did. But anyways, I know I was holding his hand, and then he went to sleep, I thought. I woke up because it was about 5:30 in the morning, and he just sat up straight in bed, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I have to go to the bathroom." And I went, "Well, wait, I've got to walk you to the bathroom because the walker just kind of a tangled mess with the catheter." And said, "I don't want you to trip or anything." So he did let me take him to the bathroom, and he tried to go some number 2, and his catheter was still working fine, it looked like. And he said, "I didn't sleep last night at all." And I said, "What's wrong?" Because he was a really good sleeper. That's one thing. Kurt was always really good. He says, "Like I was being tortured with technical noises in my mind all night." And I'm like, I go, what do you mean? He says, "Like it was foil, and like you were doing it to me." And I'm like, "Well, I would never do that." And he goes, "I know you would never do that." And I said, "Well, it sounds like oxycodone. Oxycodone, that stuff is witchcraft. It's just a drug that makes you feel real good, and then it turns on you. And now you're withdrawing from it, and we just need to drink a lot of water and get that stuff out of your system." So I got him back in bed. It was about 6 o'clock-ish after we got him back in bed, and I just laid with him and held him. I'm so glad I did that. And I prayed for him, and I could feel an oppression on him, the demonic oppression on him. I could feel it. I just prayed against it and prayed it would go. I didn't know what was going on. And it just felt like darkness. And so I made sure he was all wrapped up, and I said, "I'm going to get up and I'm going to go have my prayer time." I usually get up about anywhere from 5 to 7, and I've got this beautiful place. It's my she shed now that I have my prayer time in. I kind of give you guys a little look of it. And so I came in here and didn't spend much time, maybe 20 minutes, and prayed for him in here. And I got back in the house, and he was asleep, and I just so grateful he was sleeping. And so I went and made my coffee, or I'm not sure if I'd already made my coffee, but I went into the living room, and I was going to start searching for the Rose Parade, but it was too early. And I saw the the London Parade. In the London Parade, it made me think of my sister. She lives in England, and she answered the phone, and we talked for about 20 minutes, and I kind of told her what happened, the whole story. And I said, "Hold on, I need to go to the restroom. I'll put the phone down, and I'll be back in a few minutes." And I was sitting on the toilet in the hall bathroom, and I heard noises in our house, like clicking, like knives against knives. That's all I can describe it as. I'm like, what is going on? There's no washer going, no dryer going. I couldn't figure it out what was happening. And so I went, checked on Kurt really quick, and he was doing fine. And then I went back and talked to my sister for a while. And about 20 minutes later, I just felt like I needed to go check on Kurt again, so I did. And he was fine. He was turned, he's a side sleeper, so he was turned on his side away from me, and he was breathing just fine. And I went, okay, he's doing fine. And I went back to talk to my sister, and no more than 5 minutes, it didn't feel like it was hardly any time. I heard this huge yell and a fall and crash, and I ran as fast as I could. My slippers were slipping and I almost fell myself, and he was on the floor of our bedroom face down, and I just ran back to my phone and said, "Sister, pray. I got to call 911." So I did. I called 911 as fast as I could, and they just walked me through doing chest compressions on him. They had me turn him over and asked me if he was responding, like, was he breathing, anyways, had me doing chest compressions on him, and his lips were already blue. He was already gone. I could tell he was already gone. When he had fallen, he cut his head really bad, and there was blood everywhere. And I was begging him, "Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, don't go. You said you wouldn't leave. Wake up, wake up, wake up." Meanwhile, that emergency guy on the phone was just trying to keep me doing the chest compressions correctly, and they said the EMTs would be here anytime, so I had to leave him for a second and open the door, and came back and kept doing the chest compressions until they arrived, and then they took over. It was an amazing group of people. Amazing group of people, from EMTs to police, Sparks Police, fire department, trauma response team, grief support. I mean, they had everybody here. And I had called my daughter right at the time they arrived, because I couldn't call her because I was trying to do the chest compressions for him. Anyways, she made it in like 12 minutes from Spanish Springs, and fast as she could. I'm so grateful. She made it here safe. It was kind of a nightmare. They worked on him for 45 minutes, and they were trying to he had a pacemaker, so they thought they got a rhythm. But he was already gone. I knew he was already gone. I knew he'd already left his body. I remember when my mom died, and I remember that sense that they're gone. And I prayed that he would come back. I didn't want him to suffer either, so I was praying to come back, but God, please don't let him suffer anymore. Please don't let him suffer anymore. So they told us not to come to the hospital. And they carried him out with this machine just still pumping his heart. I've never seen anything like it. And they carried him out in like a big, huge blanket. He had a lot of fluid in his body. You could tell his legs were just full of fluid. And so they called us barely a few minutes later and had us come over to the hospital, and they let us know he had passed, and I already knew he had died. And I know it sounds so strange, but I asked them to take the intubation tube out of his mouth because they'd intubated him trying to get him to breathe. They did everything they could, honestly. And I kissed him. He was still warm. And I told him I loved him. And I knew he wasn't there, but I had to do that. I want to thank my friends from Fernley, Patty and Bill and Doug and Kathy, and Cheryl and Fred. That's we were the 8 for 29 years, really. We'd be married 29 years. And we've kind of known each other. I've known Patty for almost 45 years, many ways. And my granddaughter, Maddie, came. And I'm sure it was so hard for her to see her grandpa not alive. Frustrating part is it was New Year's Day. And I forgot it was New Year's Day. Everybody was sleeping in, you know. And my heart was broken because I was trying to get a hold of Kurt's daughter, and I couldn't get a hold of her. Of course, she was sleeping in. It was New Year's Day. Anyways, we did get a hold of her. Finally, I was able to get a hold of her. But one of the biggest blessings was Pastor Alex from Summit Church came and spent time that day at the hospital, you know, and just was so precious and so much of a pastor. And I just want to thank Pastor Alex for doing that. I'm just going to spend a few more minutes telling you. Thanking the staff and the police and the fire department and everyone that tried to help him. All my friends, family that day, my daughter. And I sadly had to tell his daughter that he'd gone. His granddaughter and his son-in-law and grandson-in-law. And anyways, it was really hard. And his one granddaughter, they were out of the country and didn't reach her, but anyways, he made such a big impact on everybody's life. I'll talk more about that in another time. I just want to end with this. I came home after that, and I just told my family, you know, I just need some time by myself. I need to talk to God. And I hadn't really been hearing from God in like 6 months. I felt like, where are you? Where are you? I was really having to struggle with the last part of Kurt's illness, and he just was suffering so much, and God kept giving me the verse, be joyful always, pray continually, and in all circumstances give thanks to God. And it's the same verse he gave me when I had cancer 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago. And he was silent because he was testing me. Was I going to remember that? Was I going to thank him in all circumstances? That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one to thank him, and watching your husband suffer with all kinds of stuff. Even though we traveled, he ended up in the hospital 3 times this year because of congested heart failure and other other issues. Anyways, I got home and I just asked everybody to leave, and they left, and I just looked up to heaven and I said, God, we just tell him I love him. I love him so much. And I heard the Lord say so clearly, daughter, I have him. It just gave me so much peace. I knew he was going to heaven no matter what. I knew that, but it was so nice to hear it, that God had him. I don't have him here anymore, his physical body, but God has him. And I was so grateful for that. And that's really what I want to end this with, is I know that I know that I know. Heaven is real. Through Christ Jesus, heaven is real. My husband was a lovely, faithful, consistent Christian. Yeah, we've screwed up in our lives big time. We both have had failed marriages, and ours was rocky at times, but he was faithful. He attended church with me every Sunday, even if it was online. We were together. Communion and baptism were so important to him. He loved Jesus, and he knew God loved him. Aging was hard. When you have diabetes, aging is hard. Anyways, I love you, Kurt Chaffin. And I'll always love you. And I know there's so many more stories I could tell, and I probably will. But I just wanted this story to be told. I am grieving. Tomorrow's the anniversary, 1 month of his death. But I know he's living. I know without a shadow of a doubt he is alive. More alive than I can even imagine. And I'm so grateful for that. So very grateful for that. I miss his physical body. I miss his kisses. I miss his upbeatness in the morning. He would be so happy in the morning, and he would do his little routine, and then I'd make him breakfast. I'd make him breakfast every day. We had our little routine where I would go out and do errands or work. I worked a lot from home, so I didn't have to do that, but this beautiful she shed, he wired it for me. My son-in-law did all the shiplap. It's really beautiful in here. So it's a happy place in a lot of ways. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this helps somebody who's grieving. The only way to have any peace at all is through Christ. I don't know how people make it without a relationship with God, but I hope you invite Jesus into your heart. I'll end with this beautiful scripture. It says, to be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. And I never really understood that. But when my mom died, my brother said, well, she'll always be with us. And I'm like, well, she's not here now. I was really just like mad at death. I hate death, by the way. It's like God's not original idea. And here we are having to suffer grief. But when he said that, he said something that helped me so much. He said, well, if she's with the Lord and we have the Lord in our hearts, then she'll always be with us. And I'm like, okay. I can receive that. And so that's what's carried me through this month, knowing that he is always with me because I have the Lord in my heart. He's always with me because he's absent from the body and he's present with the Lord. And I'm so grateful that I know that. I strongly know that, and I pray that you would know that if you're suffering grief. It is a suffering. It is a suffering. But God is with me, and God is hopefully with all of you that are having grief and struggling with any kind of grief. This is a different kind of grief because it's a husband, but there's people who have lost parents and children. I pray for you. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'm Leanne Chaffin, and I'm the Life Speaks podcast. And I'm going to put this on my podcast so that anybody who's suffering might be able to be helped. Anyways, God bless you. And I'm going to put one foot in front of the other today. I'm going to actually get out of myself and do some serving today. Okay, God bless you. Bye.